Welcome to the Flowerlounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to this month's episode of Moonshine on the Flowerlounge podcast. I'm sitting here with astrologer Kristina Wingeier, and we're going to learn all about September 2020. How did we get to September already, right?
I don't even know this year. It's so odd. It's the oddest year ever, right? I mean, this morning I just realized this year has been brutal. Like, it's just been phenomenally brutal. We've been going so fast and so slow, and everything is wild and it's kind of chaos, right? And we're in September. We've landed and we start the month with a full moon in Pisces. So tell me why you're celebrating the full moon in Pisces, Katie.
Because I'm Pisces. I love Pisces full moons. I feel so comfortable, but then I feel so terrible when I look around me and everyone else is like melting into tears.
Melting. Well, as a Pisces, what kinds of things help you not melt?
Poetry, music, rituals, offerings, prayer, meditation, swimming, hot springs, river tracing, baths, chocolate.
Yeah, find your list of ways to be with Pisces, right? Pisces is that it's very, very spiritual and artistic and creative and dreamy. It's very intuitive. It's also a lot of feelings, and you know how people are with feelings. They get very big and they don't know what to do with them. So I really do think all of those are great options. I like to walk on the trail. I like to go down to the beach and get my feet in the water. Some people can't do that, but everybody can access music or poetry, right? Or paint. And so I think those are really nice things to consider support for processing the emotions that we're all experiencing. Because with the full moon, I always think about the new moon in that sign 6 months ago and how much change has happened in 6 months. And like, where was I at that time? What was I thinking about? What were my intentions? So this new moon in Pisces was February 23rd,
Wow.
Which is a very different world, right?
Mm-hmm.
A very, very different world. And, you know, when we have the full moon in Aries, which won't be until October, that's the first full new moon that we will have had that we were in kind of this global quarantining. So there's a lot that's been building up is why I talk about this. And it's always nice to really, really reflect back on the 6 months and what you need to let go of, right? The full moons are always a reveal and release. And this full moon in Pisces also has some really interesting aspects that are supporting it, including the sun is trine Uranus and the moon is sextile Uranus. So there's a lot of breakthrough, liberating, kind of out of the box energy supporting this lunation. And so that can also help you clear what you need to clear, because I really feel like there's a lot of buildup. It feels like an emotional whiplash, like you've been on some kind of crazy ride at an amusement park. And we're just like, you know, of course, I'm a Pisces moon. So yeah, it really is always a very emotional experience, but I think it can be quite cathartic. And it's the other thing that's kind of underneath this need for catharsis is Venus is still in the last degrees of Cancer for a little minute here. And in this full moon, like she's been in that territory of being opposite Jupiter, like what faith do I have? And opposite Pluto, like completely heartbroken and tearing down like anything that was not working in relational realms. And then opposite Saturn really tightly in this particular moon, which is restrictions and limitations. And so Venus is in that really tricky territory of late Cancer. And that's this undercurrent of like emotion. And she's kind of trining Neptune. So there's a lot here on this full moon. And it's a big way to start the month. But remember, the sun is in Virgo. So we're in Virgo season. So we want to stay like grounded and practical. You don't want to like float away with the Pisces moon. That's the thing about Pisces is like escapism, kind of, addictions and things like that, numbing out because it's too much to feel. So that's how we start the month. And maybe might this be a time to talk about the flower elixir? Because I feel like it's
the
kind of thing that would support this moon.
Yes. So if you're in the Flower Revolution program, we're working with Wishbone, Purple Wishbone. If you're not in the Flower Revolution, I invite you to join us. It is absolutely amazing. And it is this month. It's a flower that we found in Taiwan. And it's actually, when I was collecting it, it was literally scary to look at. It's very unnerving. It's, one of those flowers that can dig deep into your belly and bring things up and out to be acknowledged. And sometimes we think of it as like acknowledging it to others, but most times I think it's really just acknowledging it to ourselves. Most of us have a pretty hefty level of self-criticism and self-judgment. And sometimes that it's like it ties us, it binds us. It doesn't let us move freely. We don't feel spacious, right? There's like parts of ourselves that were like shoved under the carpet and in the closet, and we just tightly keep them there. So Purple Wishbone is all about letting whatever you think is scary or ugly or tucked away just come up to the surface so it can be acknowledged, mostly by you. It's, it can also be like afraid of being exposed and afraid of other people seeing it. But most likely it's that first step of just seeing it ourselves. And then we're free. Then we're free to move and be spacious and have ease.
Yeah, we have to let that stuff come up and out. If it stays stuck in us, it's so sticky and like it just clogs the wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I have to say I've been taking that elixir for a little bit and it's definitely very powerful. So I combined it with fierce compassion. That is me. So because it's been hard. It's been really emotional. And some of you out there who have been having a hard time emotionally, it's really helpful. And you might want to have a little something to soften it. That's just my experience. Okay, so this full moon is on the 1st and the 2nd, depending on where you live. So we really start the month with this very expanded energy. And also, Mercury is square the nodes in this lunation. And this is going to be important to pay attention to because Mercury changes signs twice this month. And Mercury is the ruler of the sun in this full moon chart. Jupiter is the ruler of the moon. And, Mercury and Jupiter, Mercury and Pluto, Mercury and Saturn, they're all in a good relationship. But this whole squaring the nodes it always feels like when planets are square the nodes that we're really at a, what do you call that? Like a fork in the road around relying on the things that we always do that are kind of dysfunctional and not really working, or choosing something new, a new perspective, right? A new idea, a new experience. So I think that opportunity this first week to really choose the newness is there if you let go of what's clogging your system. And so then on the 3rd, Mercury makes that trine to Saturn exactly. So that trine to Saturn after that full moon feels to me like ideas could be concretizing, like you might start to understand and be able to put words together, write them down, know what you're going to say. Your thoughts are clearer and more connected. And that's a moment that might be nice to celebrate if you notice that, because it may not last. Like Mercury moves rather quickly right now. So it might be kind of fleeting. Sometimes you really have to pay attention to notice these things, especially when there's an overwhelm of like really bad stuff and really bad things that you're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so then Friday on Venus Day, Venus is square Mars, right? So the squares are tension points of conflict. Venus is love, relationships. Mars is action, will. A square is like we don't quite see eye to eye. And so, Mars is cranky. We're not really getting what we want. We're not going as quickly as we want. This isn't over yet. Mars is in Aries. Mars is very impatient. And slowing down because Mars is going to station retrograde the following week, right? And this is the big thing we've all been dreading. I've been like not very excited, but it's also I'm reframing it. We'll get there. So that may be a tension point, right? In in a relationship or within what you desire and what you know you want, or just that kind of confusion between will and love and things like that. But Mercury, the mind, is helping Venus through a sextile aspect. So there's a little support for Venus. And that's the idea of, coming into emotional self-responsibility. Venus is in Cancer, and emotional intelligence, right? Rather than cranky temper tantrums with Mars in Mars in a compromised position. And then Saturday, Mercury enters Libra. So we have a change in Mercury. Mercury's been in Virgo for a couple of weeks, very high functioning. Mercury's fine in Libra. Mercury in Libra moves into an air sign. Mercury is about the mind, right? So perhaps this can also invite in some balanced perspectives or some harmony or some equanimity. There probably will be an increase in, language and news stories around justice, things like that with Libra and Mercury moving there. And Mercury will be there through September 27th. So this most of the month. And then on Sunday, Venus moves from a Cancer into Leo. And Venus will be in Leo for the rest of September. And that's really nice. That is going to feel, Venus is love, relationships, Venus is money, pleasure, life's little pleasures. Leo is going to feel so much warmer and so much brighter. And so it'll just dry out that kind of soggy, emotional, swampy kind of feeling if you work with that. So there we go. That's week 1. Any thoughts or supporting commentary from the Flowerlounge?
I don't think so. It sounds pretty straightforward.
I think it's very straightforward. I think really everything's very straightforward in a certain way right now. Just Virgo season. Take care of yourself, right? What can you really assimilate? Do you have indigestion of any type? Are you taking on to Virgo so much about kind of like pruning down and getting really discerning about the choices that you're making, right? So, anywho.
Well, I should say that if you're not in the Flower Revolution, one blend that I recommend is the Expansive Presence. You can take it in the elixir form, the anointing oil mist, whatever you like. The scent is kind of a powdery floral. So if you don't like that, you might want to try the elixir instead. And that's really helpful for inviting in more support. Like when we tend to think like we got this, we can do it all ourselves, we need to do everything and shoulder the burden ourselves. I don't know, you may be able to tell us, Kristina, how that relates to the planets this month. But it seems like an important time to, as we acknowledge the truth about the parts of ourselves, that we also know we have support and that we can train ourselves to receive more abundantly.
I love that. Yeah. Well, first of all, for me, this last week, the end of August, when Venus was opposite Jupiter, I was really thinking a lot about faith. What do I have faith in? Because I feel like it's like we're losing hope when we're losing faith in anything. And I'm like, I have faith that the sun will rise, even if it's overcast. I know the sun will rise. So it's really simple things to recognize support. Like the sun will rise. I can rely on that. And for me, it's really about getting into nature. And I think as much of nature as you can get. And as a cosmologist and a cosmonaut, somebody who thinks about the bigger picture, if we can kind of find some kind of trust that there's some kind of cosmic order and that there's a redistributing that's happening that's very painful. It is it's not a value judgment, right? There is something else. We are in a shift of some type that's simply happening as we move from the Piscean to the Aquarian age. We're kind of in the Aquarian age, but we're still in that wobble. And that wobble is unnerving, right? It makes you dizzy. But there's a lot of support. And I try to consider that things aren't happening to me. They're just happening. And I have feelings, and then I get to decide really how I conceptualize it. So I'm trying to, with this, and I feel like the expansive presence really helps with that, because it feels like I'm just held by all of that. And I find that in nature and in the sky, which is nature, but somebody else might find it in a different way, petting their cat or whatever. I don't know. So yes, expansive presence, because, week 2, here we go. So the big news, week 2 is on 9/9, which is a Wednesday, Mars stations retrograde. Okay, so it's happening. It happens every 2 years or so. Mars is the planet that stations retrograde the least. So we're the least familiar with this. Doesn't happen that often, but trust me, if you've been paying attention, you'll probably remember I think you probably already know, oh yeah, I can feel that happening. But like once it's happening, you'll just really start to know that there's this frustration of not being able to kind of like get what you want right away. We live in this, culture that's how we kind of, programmed to consider that that's how life works, by pushing buttons and getting what we want. So Mars retrograde there's an astrologer that whose name is Adam Summer. I hope it's Summer. But anyway, he talks about the Mars retrograde cycle and the Mars cycle as the hero's journey. And so the phase that we'll go through in the hero's journey in the Mars retrograde is slaying the dragon. So that's a big thing to think about, instead of just being like cranky that things aren't happening as quickly and you can't get what you want, because Mars is retrograde for 2 months.
What does that mean? How does that relate? Like if, I always think of Mars retrograde as like, you want to move fast, but you're stuck in the mud. So how does that relate to slaying the dragon? Like what kind of dragon are we slaying?
Well, we're in Aries, so we're not in the mud, we're in the fire. So maybe the dragon is
burning alive.
With Mars has like swords and wants to battle. And so when you're cranky, it's really easy to like look outside and want to battle all around you. But I'm really into Durga and Kali and these stories of slaying these demons that are the ego and these like self-sabotaging behaviors that you rely on because we're just kind of neurotic and, humans. And I just feel like this year is showing me that there's no more really time for that kind of BS. And so Mars retrograde is an opportunity to be a warrior, but an inner spiritual warrior. And specifically in Aries, you look to your chart and understand, what life area do I need to re-strategize, reassess? What dragon is there for me that trips me up or that I'm afraid of, because there's a treasure, right? That's the thing. The dragon is guarding something that you need, and you're the hero in this. So you're trying to get to that. You set off on a journey, right? So that's what I mean. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's a flower? Is there anything dragony that you can think of for the Mars retrograde for elixir support?
Tell me what people will be feeling. Fiery?
Frustrated, fiery, looking for a fight. Because most of this most of this retrograde, for pretty much Mars is square Saturn a lot of the time. And that Saturn being like the wall, no. Mars is like, yes, but I'm going backwards.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I was going to say infinite love because that's sort of like the go-to for frustration and anger. But I just remembered. Oh my God.
Wait, should we celebrate? Is there like...
So funny. Look how easy I forget. This blend has taken us a long time, and maybe because now is the perfect time to release it.
I think so.
It's like the 3.0 of infinite love. It's called Open Heart, and it is for helping us be more comfortable being vulnerable, being curious. For those times when we see the elephant in the room, we don't want to see it. We feel resistant to addressing it or like experiencing emotion. Oh no. So I think that it will help us, also think outside the box in terms of pushing past our own inner boundaries. And most of all, retaining a sense of curiosity and wonder so that when the fiery stuff happens, we can still stay open. It's really about just like staying open to everything that arises. Keep staying open. And that the way really is through, right? Like we're not going to just like go hide in a corner while the dragon goes nuts. We have to just directly address it. And rather than fighting this time, we could try something new, or we could try melting, softening, opening, and turning toward ourselves and it with curiosity and compassion.
Wow. You know what that reminds me of when you're talking about it is, I may be pronouncing the word wrong, the chud practice, CHOD.
Whoa, real weird because I'm doing a whole weekend of chud this weekend.
Oh, where? I'd love to join you. Is it online? Anyway,
Yeah, it's online.
I know about that. Well, because in that practice, you befriend your demon. It's not like you slay it, you give it something that it wants. Oh, yes. I think Mars retrograde is like a chud practice. Okay. So, yeah, Google it.
Making friends with
Tibetan practice, right? Tibetan Buddhist.
So ultimately, it would be like making friends with what disturbs you or what scares you or what appears ugly and vicious.
Because in the shadow is the treasure too. And when you're talking about, what's it called? One heart or open heart?
Open heart. Mm-hmm.
That's where the treasure is. And that's where we're so defended, right? Is the heart, because it hurts so much right now. And that's what that Pisces full moon was showing us. Like, it's very hard to be human right now. Not like it's ever easy, but it's really hard this year. Well, in this, so that's Mars retrograde. I mean, we'll probably talk about it more. There'll be aspects that Mars is making, but really look in your charts. Aries needs a review.
And how long does it last again?
Until Friday, November 13th. You can't make it up this year. I mean, when the gods were like getting together, the gods and the goddesses and the planets, what shall we do this year? No, I'm kidding. But it's just like, let's just give the humans a little. All right. So it happens for a while. Look at Aries. It's between 28 and 15 degrees. That's the pathway. So if you have planets in cardinal signs in those late degrees, it might be especially challenging for you because of the squares and oppositions, right? So look at your Aries house if you're a natal chart person. Also really look at Capricorn because that's where a lot of the tension's coming. And those two areas, there needs to be some kind of resolution between those two parts of your life.
So go to Astro Cafe or
Astro.com.
Astro.com. Pull or book a reading with you, and then look at your Aries house and your Capricorn house.
Yeah, get some. This is the thing. Astrology is super strategic, my friends. Like it really gives you time periods that things are going to be a certain way. It shows you exactly what's going on. And there are things you can do to really work with that consciously and turn it around and take the challenges to really evolve, because that's what they're here for. I think that's just how I look at the world. But then again, I'm an astrologer. That's, All right. But in this Mars retrograde on this day, so Mars is really slow, right? Stationing retrograde, no movement. So there, it's right after Labor Day weekend, I think. There might be some traffic jams, right?
Traffic jams?
Like in Labor Day stuff, like if people are driving around, there may be some angry drivers on the road because Mars is very slow for a little bit there. So just have your Pisces. I'll tell you one thing Pisces teaches us, right? Is that kind of when you can have openness, but you have to protect yourself with a boundary, right? With an emotional, energetic boundary. You don't want to just absorb and feel everything out in the world. So like if with Mars being slow and retrograde and cranky, people may be hot-tempered, frustrated, saying
road rage.
Yes, road rage. So be safe, be careful, right? Just pay attention and don't do silly things. Just Mars, but not too cranky. Okay, but I'm really babbling. But Sun trine Jupiter on this day. So this is something that's interesting that's happening with the Sun this month, is that the Sun is making these trines to Jupiter and to Saturn, probably to Pluto too. And these planets are going to station direct, right? So the Sun making these trines to these planets before they station direct. The Sun is this kind of consciousness. It's a blast of light, right? And maybe there's something about these retrogrades of these outer planets that have been shall we say, reassembling your life, right? And that you've been reflecting on these areas of your life that Capricorn represents for you, getting some insight, getting some light as things change direction of how you can move forward in a more useful way that's, more uplifting and connected. So the sun trine Jupiter can also bring, again, maybe some faith, right? What do you have faith in? What can you do practically, simply? Virgo and Capricorn, right? I can take my dog on an extra long walk. It's going to make her so happy. I can put a little bit of ground chicken in her food, even though I think she's spoiled, because it will just make her so happy. Whatever. Like, what can you do for yourself that just helps you find faith and helps you feel connected, right? Because this Jupiter really has been working so hard this year, and Jupiter's going to leave Capricorn this year, which is really nice. I forgot for a while that Jupiter has been suffering all year long, in Capricorn.
I think that one of the coping skills that I've really dug into is creativity, but also sort of like in a legacy sense. And maybe that's where the Capricorn is. It's like, if you're feeling frustrated, what are you building in life? Because 2020 is going to be gone in like a second, right? And we'll be in 2021 before we know it, and 22 and 23. Time passes really quickly. So like, what are you building? What are you creating? How are you setting things up for the future in a way that, that makes sense for the future? And I think sometimes that helps us get through today, not necessarily thinking about the future, but building something today that will have a fruitful effect later. Would you say that is related to Jupiter and Capricorn?
Yes. Well, I think the whole Capricorn situation is about that, right? Because it's been torn apart. And so you need to like really assess the foundation and stabilize, right? Yeah. So I 100% agree. I love that.
Okay.
All right. Then Thursday, it's the last quarter moon in Gemini. So with the last quarter moon, it's one of the 4 major moon phases. It's half light, half dark. The moon is moving from fullness to darkness in this waning phase. So there's more kind of letting go, clearing kind of energy, redistributing. And this is in Gemini. So it's a lot about the mind, right? And the breath. And in that same day, there's a Mercury opposition to Chiron. So Mercury in Libra, Chiron in Aries. So perhaps some insight into some healing, right? That's happening rather than what's wrong, what's the wound, right? Where's everything gone wrong? What's working? What's healing? Chiron is the wounded healer, not just the wounded.
That reminds me, I just interviewed Dr. Melissa Sell for the podcast. It hasn't come out yet, but it reminded me of that. She was saying, it's such a phenomenal Germanic new medicine. If you haven't checked it out,
What's
my God. Germanic new medicine.
Is that a website?
It's like a way of seeing the world.
Okay.
It's based on a work from a German doctor and scientist. Anyway.
Cool. What's the name again? I'm sorry. I don't even know.
His name is Dr. Hamer, Hamer. And the woman that I interviewed, her name is Dr. Melissa Sell. It's drmelissasell.com. Even if you go to her courses page, you can start to connect things together. Anyway, what this doctor found was that there are biological things that happen in our bodies. So when something intense happens emotionally, our body will respond in an intelligent way to support us. And so I can't think of a good example right now, but the thing that I was thinking of is she was saying, when you experience something physical, like let's say you have like a neck pain, it means that your body has already moved into resolution and healing stage. It's in fact before that point that there was this stress happening. And once it manifests in the body, your body's already in resolution. And that's what it's doing to resolve. It's either building up tissue or breaking it down, which is causing this discomfort or disalignment, like lack of alignment. So if you could apply that same kind of philosophy to astrology, you could say that if you're experiencing some sort of discomfort, you actually are in the resolution and healing phase, right? Versus...
Yes. I affirm this. I love it. Makes complete sense to me. That so resonant. And I love that there's some science, to show us this. Because a lot of people need evidence of what we kind of know is happening, right? So that's helpful and exciting. I can't wait to learn more about this Germanic new medicine. Cool. All right. And then Friday, the 11th, we have a foggy day, foggy forecast. We have the sun opposite Neptune. So the sun's in Virgo, very practical, very pragmatic, very grounded, down to earth, a little busy. Okay, Virgo season, you may have been trying to be perfect. Okay, Virgos really don't want to get anything, and they work so much. So this opposition to Neptune in Pisces, a little hazy, right? A little confusing. Neptune is mysterious and mystic and transcendent and spacey sometimes, but it can also be very, very creative, very deep meditations. But I think it is happening on a major like day of mourning in the country I live in, right? So there's going to be wackadoodle news. Wackadoodle, it's going to be very strange. I can only imagine. So that's something to consider. And then that Saturday, that's when Jupiter stations direct. So Jupiter is still a lot of the outer planets, and Jupiter is a social planet, but it is, farther away than a personal planet, are very slow this month because of the stationing. The outer planets move slowly anyway. Jupiter can move at a fair clip, but in the stationing direct phase, then this, of course, means a stillness. And that feels like, I'm just going to say that F word again. Let's anchor into faith, right? What can you rely on? Where can you find in yourself kind of like, I got this, right? I got this. It's gonna be okay. The sun's gonna rise. Like whatever the basic thing is, because it's really like that for a lot of people. It's very, very disruptive this year. I don't think we really recognize how much mental illness and ill health, and like it's just so intense what's happening to us all, right? The whole culture. So that's anchor in. And then on Sunday, Venus trines Chiron. Venus in Leo, Chiron in Aries, and it's also when the moon and Venus are conjunct, the balsamic moon. So Venus is at the moon gate and making a trine to the wounded healer that we were just talking all about, right? With Mercury opposite Chiron, and this idea that you're in resolution already, right? That's why there's a trine, and that energy can move very quickly and very easily. And with the Venus conjunct the moon at this moon gate in the morning sky, the way that I work with that cycle is it's a clearing cycle. And I work with women in my Goddess Codes program. We kind of go through the chakras. So we're working on the 5th chakra and really clearing out sound and voice. And Leo is, the heart. We speak from the heart, have courage to speak the truth from the heart, creatively, beautifully, lovingly, fiercely, right? So I think that's a
Wishbone.
Wishbone, baby.
Have you seen it? It looks like a huge mouth. It's like everything coming from the belly.
It's on my computer, my desktop. I actually was like, I almost want to like dive into that little portal. It feels like a black hole, kind of, with that purple like sun thing that's in there that I just want to dive in, a little hood. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. People are like, okay, Kristina, but it's beautiful. Yeah. So the moon gate, that's week 2. Week 3, Monday, the 14th. This is when the sun in Virgo still, right, makes a trine to Pluto. So Pluto's quite still and will be stationing direct in early October. But so, Pluto doesn't move very fast. So this is going to give some insight into the underbelly, what's underneath, what's underground, the riches beneath the soil. Also into power struggles, power plays. Stop looking at other people. Look at yourself, because we all do this stuff, even if it's really subtle, right? Got to stop. That's how it's going to shift, is from that like internal.
Turn towards yourself.
It's day by day, it's moment by moment. I mean, I'm not saying this is easy, people, but it's really important. So the sun trining Pluto gives us some insight into the underbelly, the underworld, and the riches the gold that lives there, the treasures. And then on Tuesday, the 15th, this is when Venus is making a square to Uranus. So Venus in Aries square Uranus in Taurus. Again, Venus, love, right? Relationships, passion in Leo, right? There's a lot of fire and passion and fun with Venus and Leo. Maybe there'll be more dancing. I just saw the like dancing cha-cha-cha emoji in my mind when I Venus and Leo, because I know you do salsa dancing. That's probably why. And Uranus, again, is fundamentally a liberating force, but it's a disruptive force, right? It's an uncertain thing. It's a kind of sometimes inconvenient, sometimes very painful when things shift very quickly. So this square is some friction, but it could also kind of light some kind of creative match, right? It could really kind of get you out of your comfort zone in a good way, right? Especially if you do something like dance or something that's going to make you feel festive and celebrating, right? So there's that. And then Wednesday, the sun, this is the 16th, is making a square to the lunar nodes. And the reason, again, that I talk about these nodes is that, this is where eclipses happen. So they're important points in the chart. And being square the nodes means we're kind of in between eclipse seasons. So we're halfway. Maybe there's a little report card that you can look at and see like what's been happening since we had eclipses on June 5th, June 21st, 20th, 21st, and then July 4th and 5th, right? And then we had eclipses coming in November. And
we do? We have more eclipses coming in November?
Of course. They come
Holy mackerel.
Oh, yes. They're reliable as clockwork eclipses, really. Yeah, every 6 months, right? Whenever the sun goes by within a certain degree of these nodes that I'm talking about. Yeah. So square the nodes of fate. I mean, that's a powerful thing to consider, the past, the future, but we're holding on to what we need to perhaps grow into, right? So, and then that's right on the eve of the Virgo new moon, which is our new moon for the month. We've got a very late Virgo new moon, right? Because the sun's almost moving into Libra very soon after this moon. But this is a new moon, again, September 17th, at 25-degree Virgo. Exactly. That's so Virgo. I just kind of love that. And in my time zone, it's happening exactly at 4 a.m. So there's this kind of like precision with this new moon that I find to be interesting, very Virgo. So the sun and the moon are in Virgo, and at 20, as I said, 25 degrees. And in this chart, the ruler of this lunation would be Mercury. Mercury is in Libra, because Mercury rules Virgo. So Mercury, again, remember, Mercury's in Libra, so we're thinking about balance, speech, maybe more harmonious mind and communication, also justice and a desire to kind of get things right. And this ruler of the lunation, Mercury in Libra, is in this moment square to Jupiter. And we talked like very strong square. So this...
What would that mean?
Well, Jupiter is faith, expansion. Mercury is the mind. Mercury is the way we speak. So maybe we're feeling a little bit like I'm having a hard time speaking in a way that isn't really pessimistic. Like I can only see where the scale is, where the glass is half empty in this situation. And I'm really having frustration and it's feeling overwhelming because Jupiter makes things bigger. And I have so many things I can point to and give evidence to that everything's really hard right now, right? So there's maybe, and Virgo is already a sign that's very hardworking. So, it's useful energy if you use it the right way, if you can notice these places without the self-criticism that Virgo is kind of maybe really good at. So, but rather a sense of service and devotion, right? So this new moon is also, it's trining all of those Earth planets. It's trining Saturn, very strong. So it's something we can build on. You talk about the legacy, Capricorn. This new moon is a time to set an intention in the Virgo area of your life Virgo is a very hardworking, organizing principle. And Saturn wants to create structure. So it can be for the long term. You can set a 6-month goal at this new moon, which is a great time to do that for Virgo. And Mars is very, very, very unhappy in this chart. Mars is retrograde and moving back into that square with Saturn. So let the frustration help you just kind of roll up your sleeves and get down to business, right? So Virgo new moon, make a 6-month wish intention. Mercury square Jupiter, Sun trine Saturn. Those are the major aspects. Mercury is also trine the north node and sextile the south node. So Mercury is in a better position to work with that energy than it was at the full moon and then the sun was at. So again, there's a lot of subtle interaction with the nodes this month. On Sunday, the 20th, Mercury makes a square to Pluto. Mercury, the mind, communication, Pluto, the underworld, power, transformation. So our minds are changing if we want them to. There's an invitation to clear away thinking and communication patterns that you struggle with people, or that you're struggling with yourself within your own mind. It's a really nice opportunity to not fall prey to it. The square may have them activated. And maybe it's about making a new choice on how to respond. Right? Week 4, that's week 5, that's week 3. Week 4, Mercury square Pluto in the morning on the east coast of the 21st. So that's just the aspect carrying over. Tuesday is the shift in solar season. We have the equinox where the sun moves into Libra. So whenever the sun moves into a cardinal sign, we're at one of those cross-quarter points. This is the autumnal equinox in the northern hemisphere. This vernal, is it vernal? Is the word for spring, I think. Equinox in the southern hemisphere. We're at a balance point, right? Where things are more, that Mercury in Libra has been preparing us for the sun. It's kind of making way for the sun to come in and move through Libra season, which means that there's a shift in the solar fuel. Rather than being hardworking, organizing, earthy Virgo, the solar fuel is now in the mind more. It's an air sign. It's very relational. It's ruled by Venus. Will initiate a conversation, wants to change things. Cardinal signs want to change things. And it brings us into a new season. So that moves us into fall. And you were talking about reds and oranges, wearing them because it feels like fall already.
Yeah, it feels like fall. We're 113 today, and next week we're going to be at 96. That's fall for Phoenix. And then suddenly it'll be like 50s. It'll be too cold. But I think I see other people in New Brunswick or Maine already like tucked in their caps and sweaters and
cozy
fall. Yeah. Wild. Yeah. We made it through the summer.
Yeah. It's always, there are lots of ways to celebrate the equinox, and I'm not an expert in particular rituals or anything like that, but I do like to mark the change in solar season. I like to look at my natal chart and see where the fuel is and what's there and how to work with it. And I always change my elixir with the solar season. That's how I like to do the flower evolution program. So happy equinox, balance. I believe it's one of the final harvests. I think there's 3 harvests. I think it's Lammas, which is in August 2nd, equinox, and then Samhain, which is Halloween. I think those are the kind of final, I could be wrong on that. And then on the 23rd is the first quarter moon in Capricorn with a Mercury square Saturn. So the mind, the communication, things of that nature, mercurial subjects get limited. There's a limitation there, right? There's maybe some frustration or a wall or
censorship. No freedom of speech.
Media manipulation of all sorts, in all realms, in every single thing. It's a wild, wild country out there. Yeah, and squares are for readjustment. Squares are for choosing something different. Squares are for course correcting rather than battling it out and bouncing your head against the wall over and over again, which is what it feels like maybe on Thursday the 24th when Mercury is opposite Mars. So a square to Saturn and then opposite Mars. Maybe some, let's just say, loudmouths and mental fatigue and confusion and frustration, and maybe don't plan on having a hard conversation that day unless you're super grounded and knowing, you really feel like you've slayed your dragon or you've turned that corner in a way that you're going to show up differently. Because if you show up the same, you're probably going to get the same results. You might not like it. That first quarter moon energy with all of this kind of Mercury stuff is feeling sticky. And then on the 27th, Mercury moves into Scorpio. So that is a big shift in the mind and in communication, because Libra is much more concerned with diplomacy, actually, and Scorpio is just plays pretty dirty sometimes. So we're going to start seeing a lot of mudslinging, right? A lot of toxins and spewing and whatnot. And Mercury will station retrograde in Scorpio mid-October. It'll be a Scorpio Libra retrograde with Mercury stationing direct on election day in this country. So it's started to get into some interesting territory at the end of the month, I would say. And we end the month with Monday the 28th, a Venus trine Mars. So we've had earlier in the month where Venus and Mars were kind of at odds, but now they're working together. So there's a way that love and desire or will or action can maybe help each other out potentially, right? Saturn stations direct that day as well. So there's a very strong foundation or a very large wall. I guess it depends on your perspective, maybe both and. And, what's great about Saturn and Jupiter stationing direct this month is that means that they're really getting close to being out of Capricorn and going into Aquarius, which is a Saturn-ruled sign, but it's a much different Saturn energy. We had a feeling of that, an experience of that earlier this year when Saturn went into Aquarius for a little bit. So every little degree that gets you closer to leaving Capricorn is a time of celebration. So, and that Saturn direct is on Tuesday for the East Coast and others. Tuesday the 29th is a pretty big day because we've got Sun opposite Chiron, again, working with that wounded healer energy. But this is the day that the second of 3 Mars-Saturn squares is exact. So these are teaching points. I don't know. We had the first Mars-Saturn square on August 24th, Monday of this week, Katie, when we were recording. So there's some kind of battle. There's some kind of conflict, with this Aries Capricorn, Saturn and Mars in your life that you're getting an opportunity to really look at and reorganize, right? And so this is the second square between them, and it is when Mars is retrograde and Saturn is stationing. So again, Saturn is very firm, and Mars is probably ineffective. So that gives you an idea of maybe stand tall and ground down rather than try to jab and, battle. What is shadow boxing? What is when you're like fighting with yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, Monday felt like doing a lot of little stuff, but not doing the big important things. Like kind of getting slugged in the little things like that you got to catch up on. So will it have a similar theme or they'll be different?
The best way to really understand this is, and plus Monday was also under the influence of a building Mercury-Uranus trine, which was I love that trine. And then, so that was so that's something I feel is influencing that. What I would really say is that, again, look to Aries. That's where you're trying to get things done. And Capricorn, that's where you're trying to hold the line or create something very solid. And if you understand that about yourself, so how does getting little things done but not doing the big thing relate to your chart where Aries and Saturn are, or the concept of action and will and stabilizing and foundation? Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of translate it? Okay. squares between them. The third one will be a resolution square. It will be in January of next year, and they will both be in different signs. Mars will be in Taurus, and Saturn will be in Aquarius, as we were speaking of. So there's going to be a resolution in a very different way. But this is the moment in the Mars retrograde where, well, actually it's not. It's the Mars-Sun opposition next month. That's the official kind of slaying the dragon. I would say this is setting the scenes for your dragon slaying adventure in October.
That's exciting. Kind of, I think. Ready to go get the pearl from the dragon.
Maybe we need the pearl elixir.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's a lot going on. Kind of like a little rough.
Really busy month.
Rough around the edges towards the end there, especially.
It's very rough, actually. It's the fall is rough. It's truly rough. I do think that it feels a little irritating to say that, and people may not want to really know that because it's been really rough all year long. And I have to think, for me, the way that I've been thinking about it in my own life and even in the community that my Moon Club, I'm just talking about, yes, it's been really, really rough. And it's been kind of like a Jedi mind training opportunity to really deal with this Mars retrograde, the Saturn squares, the kookiness that's going to happen all fall in the news and politically and all of that. It's very choppy. And we are leaving 2020 soon. 2021 has got its issue. 2021, yeah, that's where we're going. It's not without its challenges. The story continues in a different format, but we are really in a phase. And it's, when we first kind of went into the quarantine, I had a friend that said to me that, your grandchildren might say to you, what were you doing when everything changed? And at first I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, we're just being going in for a little while. But she was really onto something. Like, if you reflect back 6 months, who'd have thunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah, I still thought I was going to Asia, right? Remember, I was like, no, I'll go. I know I'm going. No, I'm going. Asia's done. And then we crashed, and then they crashed again, or locked up, or whatever you want to call it. I know it's been kind of an endless cycle. So maybe fall is like where it gets worse before it gets better. Just like get out all the acne. Just
it's
get
very
it out.
Purging. It's very purging. You can really, again, I really think the key is to take it to the inner. And to
Exactly.
stop looking at others and look at everything as a mirror showing you yourself.
Yeah.
So that will be the way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is September 2020. We'll be back on October 1st for the October Dragon Slaying Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining the Moonshine. If you want to get more specific into the details of your own chart, I know Kristina's still taking appointments, and then she has a lot of other courses that open and close at different times. So definitely check out her website, KristinaWingeier.com. Anything else you want to say?
That's all. Yeah, I am moving over. Like, I'm changing my platform, so the Mars retrogrades. What chart for you? You're in Aries. Oh, it's your first house. It's interesting to consider where this restructuring is happening. For me, it's really about my career. So I'm like putting everything on a new platform and like getting streamlined and organized and things like that. So there'll be new stuff happening. It's a good time to get on my mailing list, I guess, to kind of be in the know for 2021. I'm thinking about 2021 right now. But right now, the Moon Club, my membership is always open, and that's something. And I am teaching a class on Mars retrograde, actually, a master class, and that is on September 7th. You can sign up for that if you want. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Kristina, and thank you to all the listeners.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next month.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flowerlounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.